let's get State Representative Dean Black up here to speak. Dean stepped down as chairman of the Republican Party here recently, and he's got President Trump's trying to get him down to Mar-a-Lago again to talk. But tell us, what are the key things going on in the state legislature that we should be concerned about and be praying for or voting for or whatever that might be, okay? Give Dean Black a big round of applause, please.
So, hey, good morning. Good morning. By the way, I didn't know I was going to start the morning with a sermon, but I needed that, didn't you? You did a great job there, sir. John, do you need me to shorten the time up to get us back on schedule? Just tell me what I need to do here.
That would help. Go ahead. Do it.
Okay. So, everybody, this is Elena Lopez, my legislative aide in Tallahassee, and she keeps me on the straight and narrow. Elena, give me 20 minutes. Hold up 5 fingers when I have 5 minutes left, okay? All right, and that will hopefully keep me from saying too much. You know, by the way, there's some of you here I don't know. I'm Dean Black, and I'm an 8th generation resident of North Florida. My wife and I raised 5 children here. I have several companies. I own and develop and operate Amco transmission stores. I operate just one store today. That's the one on San Jose Boulevard. I have some commercial real estate. I also own a cattle ranch. So in my when I get home on the ranch, I've got a hat and the boots and all of that. I clean up okay, though. I was the immediate 3-term chair of the Republican Party of Duval County, and I just gave that up. That is the longest amount of time anyone has served as the Republican Party chairman in Duval County in 50 years, at least, that we know of. And what that tells you is only twice in a century is someone born who's dumb enough to do that 3 times. I finally learned my lesson. I'm now your elected Republican Party of Florida State Committee man. So if the chairman is the executive branch, think the state committee man is sort of the legislative branch, and I represent all of the Republicans to the Republican Party of Florida and to the Republican National Committee. And I also serve in the Florida legislature in District 15. And John said, for me to do a discourse on the challenges of the legislature. Well, Mr. Clark just told us that everything we do, and we believe that because we're members of Wise Counsel, right? That whatever we're doing is actually a ministry masquerading as whatever. Man, am I supposed to tell you that all of politics is a ministry? All right, I'm trying to get it there for you, but I'm not sure we've got it all done. But the challenges of the Florida legislature, the best way to understand that would be to let you know the business we have before us. And Collie brought me into this organization. I think it's probably been like 15 years. He said I needed adult supervision. And so we're still working on that. But Collie said the best way to do that would be for me to talk about the bills we ran. You remember that conversation, right, Collie? Well, in a given year, we will usually have about 2,000 bills. And I'm going to read each one of them to you verbatim. Collie told me to do that. But Collie, I can't do that because John said I have to shorten this up. All right. So I want to talk to you, though, because, look, politics is, boy, what we've been through is something else. And it's not over. And I got into politics for the same reason I got into business, for the same reason that I got into Wise Counsel, and that's because God called me and told me to do it. Because I think if He didn't tell me to do it, there's no way in heck I would do this. So I want to talk to you. I want to sort of go up to 30,000 feet and sort of get an overall view, and then we're going to come down at treetop level and see how that looks like, and then I'm going to get you down in the weeds, okay? All right, so at 30,000 feet, the challenges of the Florida legislature are actually national in scope because we just had a presidential election. You might have heard of that. And what's happening is a lot of the talent that has been groomed in the Florida legislature and then moved on to other leadership roles in the state of Florida, well, that bench is being raided for talent. And President-elect Trump is taking people to Washington, D.C., and it really hits home here in Duval County. In a sense, what we're doing is we're making America Florida. And if that's true, what we're also really specifically doing is, in a way, we're kind of making America Duval County. Your chief of staff in the White House is Susie Wiles, personal friend of mine, smart, has incredible integrity, and by the way, a good Christian woman. You have lots of other people from Duval County serving as counselors to the president in the highest positions you can imagine. And from 30,000 feet, what does that mean? People ask me all the time, they say, Dean, you guys are working so hard and there are so many problems in our country and I just don't know what's going to happen. I'm worried about the future for my kids, for my grandkids. I don't think they're going to have the same sort of opportunities that I had when I was growing up. You guys ever feel like that? And people ask me, they say, Dean, what's it going to look like in 20 years? Because we're all bogged down in the drama of the moment, and sometimes it doesn't look good. What's it going to look like in 20 years? And I think I know. I think it's going to look a lot like Florida. Because we've done a lot of great things here. And that's really what's happening. They're looking at the model of Florida, and look, they're looking at other places too. They're seeking wise advice and counsel from everywhere, not just here, but mostly here. I think I can prove that. And so if we come down to treetop level from 30,000 feet, let's look at what that looks like. All right, so at treetop level, we've done some incredible things in Florida. One of the things that we've done is we passed school choice. And that is a big deal. Because if 20 years from now, we want there to be hope, well, it's the children of today that are going to have to build that and sustain that, right? And we gave parents a choice. We created a system where the money now follows the child. And mom and dad, if you want your kids, and grandma and grandpa, if you want your kids to be able to go to a different school. If you don't like the school they're in, you can fire that school because the money follows the child now. And the state of Florida will give you money and you can send them to a charter school, you can send them to a private school, you can send them to Catholic school, you can send them to wherever you want. You can even homeschool them. And the truth is, very few people heretofore could afford to send their kids to private school. And now, education has become the great equalizer, and with parents having that power. Now, the founders of the Republic believed that this Republic would only survive if it were led by a moral people. I can't speak for every choice every individual in America will make, but what I can say is we've given parents the power now, where government's deck is not stacked against them such that they can now send their children where they can get a moral upbringing, or they can do it themselves. And we've provided those tools. That's a powerful example. We've done other things. We passed a law banning transgender surgery on little kids. And look, I don't hate anybody. We just heard in our sermon that, we shouldn't really be judging others. But when you want to argue with me for the right, we don't have any kids in here, do we? To castrate little children and do mastectomies on little girls. They call that gender-affirming care. In the Florida House, in leading the floor fight, we called that an abomination. That's right. Yes. We called that evil, and we passed that bill. By the way, as an aside, there were a whole bunch of transgender folks up in the gallery, and when we passed the bill, they threw their underwear at us. That led the speaker to have barriers put up now, so that won't happen again in the future. But so the challenges at treetop level, well, we're fighting evil, but we're winning, y'all. You know, one of the hardest things to do in all of politics is to get a supermajority of anything. That's the third hardest thing to do. The second hardest thing to do is to retain it, because usually when you get a supermajority, well, you ended up taking some seats you shouldn't have. And so the other side comes and takes those back. But the hardest thing in all of politics is to grow a supermajority. That's almost impossible. In the Florida House and in the Florida Senate, we achieved a supermajority. We defended a supermajority. And we grew a supermajority. And look, we've got some really savvy political people, and boy, our political scientists are the best, okay? And we've got some great candidates, but you don't do that without God's help.
Amen.
And so 20 years from now, I think we're going to really like where the future leads us, because we're making America Florida. And God is woven all in that. We've gotten committee assignments. I still don't have them memorized. I do have them written down here for me. It feels a lot like when you go to school and you get your class schedule and you're wondering, man, where is this class? I don't know. But one of the committees I'm in leadership on is the Education and Administration Subcommittee. I'm vice chair of that committee. You can tell from the passion that I've brought in the room so far, I care very much about our kids, because I know therein lies the future. Well, Florida law already allows for the placement of certain documents in our classrooms. You can put up the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and so on. We're working on a bill right now. Elena has a draft back from drafting, and if all goes well, and if I like the language there, we're working on it, and I expect to file, maybe when I leave this room, maybe it'll be tomorrow, but a bill to allow and actually require the display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom in the state of Florida. By the way, you're hearing this first. And why do we want to do that? Well, look, the pillars of Western civilization are embodied in the Ten Commandments, and they're not the 10 suggestions. And if we're really concerned about the behavior of kids in schools, look, you're not going to regulate behavior by regulating tools that are being abused. In other words, look, if it were overeating that we were talking about, we wouldn't think we could regulate obesity by banning forks or regulating forks. And I think we're very misguided in gun control as it relates to our youth. And I don't want to get off too much on that tangent, but I am saying that's a shiny distraction. You can't regulate the tools and change the behavior. Because look, I remember, and I'm not that old, when kids used to go to school and we used to have our firearms in our trucks because we were going dove hunting when we got out of school, and nobody cared. You weren't allowed to get it out of the truck, but it was very common, and nobody thought to shoot up a school. The guns didn't change. Something in us did as a people, and that's behavior. And frankly, that's a spiritual problem.
Amen.
And spiritual problems have spiritual answers. And I don't have to intervene in the public school systems and preach and we can respect everyone's belief system. You don't even have to believe it all. Now, you should believe that I do. But we have to get back to teaching universal, moral, fundamental values. And the Ten Commandments are the underpinnings of that Declaration of Independence, of that Constitution, of all that this republic was ever dreamed to be. And it addresses behavior. And there are a lot of other bills that we're going to address. A couple that I know that our business folks in the room are going to be interested in. There's a bill being contemplated now to create windstorm coverage covered by the state in citizens' property. Citizens' property, for those of you who don't know, is the state insurer of last resort. And look, I've struggled as a businessman with insurance costs. Heck, even as just a homeowner, you wouldn't believe my insurance. The truth is, we get some pretty darn big storms here, and that's not going to stop. And the one thing that we think we would be able to do, what if we took hurricanes out of the insurance equation altogether and said, okay, that will belong to the state, and everything else can operate as an ordinary insurance market? The truth is, Citizens writes about 40% of the overall policies in the state already anyway, and they're not cheap. But what we would really like to do is remove the excess risk so that the insurance companies can come back into the state and have a competitive environment so that you can actually choose and you have real choices. And that those competitive pressures would eventually then diminish those costs over time. So at treetop level, we're doing a lot of things to effectuate good, solid policy that are founded on free market solutions. And all of these things that we have done here and are about to do are copied all across the country. There are times in my office, my phone just blows up and somebody will call from another legislature in another state and they'll say, oh my God, what's in the water down there? Man, the free state of Florida is awesome. And can I get a copy of this bill or that bill? And how did you do this? And how did you do that? And we share all of that so that the things that we do here in Florida echo across the country. Those are challenges of leadership, John. Because when we govern for the people of Florida here, in a sense, vicariously, we're governing for the whole country. And so we have to really, really watch what we're doing. Now, I do want to say one thing. I'm down in the weeds with you now. We passed major legislation dealing with tort reform. In Florida, we had about 9%, we have about 9% of the population, but 74% of all lawsuits against insurance companies in the entire country were being filed here in Florida. Yeah, that's preposterous, isn't it? Yeah. So we had one lawsuit here for every 200 insurance claims. Now in California, where we don't think they do a lot of things right, they would have one lawsuit for every 10,000 claims. Wow. So that's how wrong that was. We don't always get things right, but we did pass major insurance reform. That was in the last session. We will go in and we will tweak those bills to make sure that they're working in the right way. And we are addressing some of the major costs and drivers of inflation and quality of life issues thereby through what we're doing in Florida. If Florida were an independent nation, we would be the 13th largest nation on earth. Your Florida legislature would be roughly the equivalent of the parliament in a medium-sized European nation. And I'll close with this. By comparison, in the state of New York, their budget, and their population, by the way, is roughly, they're about the same size as Florida. yet their budget is twice what ours is. And we've managed to make the free state of Florida and make it an example for the whole nation and even other parts of the world. And we've done it at half the cost of New York. And that is an exclamation point in how Florida deals with the challenge of governing. And I ask for each of you to pray for your legislature as we're writing bills, refining them, filing them, dealing with the incoming fire. That 10 Commandments bill, you will think I had filed a bill to ban puppies. So I appreciate you all. And John, I hope I got you back on time.
You did good. You did good. Thank you.